Welcome back to part 2 of this princess-themed left-handed bandit mobile paint party experience. So in the first video, first part of the painting, we were able to get our backgrounds in by working around the crown and the afro and working through the body. As the paint dries, you should be able to see just a little bit of the details to kind of guide us. So right here, I can see one side of my neck, but not the other. I can see a part of the princess's trapezoid, her shoulders here, and we can kind of imagine how they would flow down. I'll teach you how to go about getting those lines nice and precise. And in addition, we're gonna go ahead and also fill in the afro. We should still be able to fairly see the outline and the curls on the afro and the outline on the crown as well. So we're gonna jump right into this, and believe it or not, the rest of the painting from here is a breeze. We're going to use just the regular paintbrush. Make sure it's nice and clean by swishing around in water, tapping both sides off of your cup, then dabbing both sides off on your paper towel. And as soon as you have a nice clean brush ready to go, what we're going to do is we're going to grab just a touch of white paint. Just a touch of white paint with that brush. Now, as I said, acrylic paint dries very fast. We want to be able to make sure our crown up here is nice and vibrant, and the tips got covered a little bit. So we're gonna go ahead and reclaim those tips with some white paint by filling in the crown area over here, making the points. And by the time I get back to that crown, that white should be nice and dry, because it'll take a few minutes as we jump around this painting and finish it up. So we're working on these fine little bells and whistles to bring our painting to life fully at this point. So we'll come back to that crown in a second. Go ahead and rinse off that paintbrush, tap it on the side of your cup, dab both sides off with your paper towel. We are going to move to the afro next. And what we're going to do is we're going to be using our black paint. So I want you to grab just a touch of black paint, and you can start first by identifying the curls. So I got a nice glob on mine, but you don't have to have as much paint on yours. I would suggest using just a little bit of paint at a time. I have a little bit more practice, so it's a little bit easier for me to manipulate the paint. But if you don't paint as much, just use a little bit at a time. A nice trick for using our black for the rest of this painting is that once we take our paintbrush, we can smooth both sides. So one side swipe back, second side swipe back. We flatten and sharpen our paintbrush so we can make tighter, sharper lines. So every time you grab black paint and white paint, or even yellow paint specifically, those three colors for the rest of this painting, swipe both sides out in your paint and get your paintbrush nice and sharp. So I'm going to take that nice sharp paintbrush of mine, and I'm going to start redefining those curls. My canvas should be nice and dry and good for me to go. If yours is not, you may want to just wait a couple more minutes. Now, as we're reclaiming the outline of this afro, you may be thinking, why did we paint our crown white and not the afro white? Well, the reason to that is because we want to be able to use yellow for the crown, which won't show through as well with a darker color already on it, versus a black color like we're using is going to be very, very strong and powerful, and that black is going to cover and hide all details of the flaws in that background. So now we got our crown shape, our afro shape redefined. We're going to go ahead and fill that afro on in with nothing but solid black paint. You can use a little bit more paint at this point. You don't have to necessarily worry about sharpening your paintbrush for the afro, because we want to get some texture kind of going throughout this. So what you could do is you could fill it in nice and solid if you want to, or you can add some curls and swirls and little dips and dabs in here and give her some texture. But that is completely up to you. But I'm going to give mine a little texture here and a little texture right over here. Swirling and dirling it all around, and then in the middle, I'm going to make it a bit more solid. So I have variety. When you add variety to these paintings, it makes them so much better in the end because you are working hard on them, and anything that you apply hard work to will come back to benefit you. So I have some spaces in my afro, which is a fun opportunity for me to wipe the excess paint off of my paintbrush, swipe and drag both sides off on your paper towel. You do not have to dip it in water. You can go right into your white paint, and when we have some white paint on this brush, we can kind of literally dab that in to these open areas, and what that's going to do is that's going to start making some gray for us to show some highlights in the hair and help us to create and keep that texture that we've been working on. So I'm literally taking my paintbrush, holding it in the middle, and dabbing it to the canvas. So it's dabbing, it's creating a texture effect. I'm just patting and dabbing the paintbrush. I'm not even patting too hard. And the goal of this is to get a nice amount of gray, black, and white visible in his. You can go back later with a few minutes and add some more black. We can add a little bit more white if we feel like we don't have enough. So I'm dabbing, and the goal is to get all those areas that were white background of the canvas that are now white with paint, and get a nice blend of gray, black, and white. Now, I got a nice amount of grays, I got a nice amount of whites. I want to go back in with my black so that I can blend this just a little bit more smoothly and call the hair complete. So I'm wiping the excess paint off of my paper towel again. I'm going to go back into my black. I'm going to add a little bit more black to a few different random areas of your own choice. This is super freestyle at this point. And we are working towards finishing our paintings, so we're not far off here. And you see how that black's kind of blending in that gray just a little bit more. And it's okay if it's nice and thick, because excuse me, I'm tripping over my words. When that thick paint dries, you're gonna have a nice 3D texture effect to your painting. So it's okay to glob up on the afro. Glob up as much as you like. However, for the rest of the painting, try to make smooth applications of paint. I'm loving the way this afro is looking. I may add just a little bit more black here and there, but otherwise, I'm digging this, and I'm going to move to the next part of my painting, which is going to be the body. So we're gonna keep with that black or gray, whatever's on your brush. We do not have to dip it in water, but we are gonna smooth both sides of our paintbrush out in our black to get a nice sharpened brush. So now we get a nice sharpened brush, I'm going to use the corner. And even if your brush doesn't look exactly like mine, this principle still applies. Smooth both sides of your paintbrush out in your paint. Using the sharper or tightest corner, we're going to make some plot points so that we can connect the dots. So find at least one side of your neck where your neck meets your shoulders. I see one here. Now the neck is usually symmetrical, so we can add another right across from it, right about here. Be careful not to make your neck too wide. A nice, thin, petite neck. We're going to make more dots that are going to show where our shoulders curve, so we're going to make actual little, almost like open parentheses or smiles. So we're going to find one side of the shoulder over here, and then I'm going to look for another side of the shoulder I can see right about here. And I'm curving in the opposite direction. We can already see where our line's going to start to come together, and we know that originally our painting curved down a little bit. So I'm going to come right down here and make a dash, because I'm going to curve into that and come to the opposite side. Try to be as symmetrical as you can and make a little dash on the opposite side. So I'm going to go ahead and connect those dots first. So I'm starting right from the afro. I'm curving down into the neck, curving around to the shoulder, and curving all the way down to where that line is supposed to end. Now, I did that in one swipe of paint. That takes a little bit of practice. If you can get that on the first try, more power to you. But if you have to go back over a few times, that's fine. I'm going to do the exact same thing to the opposite side. I'm going to start from the afro again. I'm going in the opposite direction, curving around the neck, over to the shoulder, and all the way down to that other line. Now, that line is a little bit wonky, so again, I'm going to go over that one more time, just to sharpen it on up. Now we have our princess's shape. And the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to define that back by following, not painting yet. I'm not touching my canvas. I have distance from my canvas. I'm going to find the middle of her back right about here, make a little dot, and from there, maybe sharpen your brush a little bit in your paint, and I'm going to make the line indentation in the middle of her back. To get your line to go from bold to thin like that, you start heavy-handed, and then as you follow through with the line, you press lighter as you go through, and it'll automatically make that shape and thin that line out. We're going to add the definition to her arms. So this part is the most tricky, probably, of the entire painting. And I want to make a dot kind of close to where the outer arm is, right about here. And then looking at how much space is in between here, I'm going to go to the opposite side and do the same thing. And for these two, you can watch me first and then do it. And I'll show you a couple times. Now watch me first. I'll start down here, and I'll lightly curve up, ending right about here. And I'll go to the opposite side and do the exact same thing, right about there. And we can even add a little bit more of a crease here to show that it's the underarm. You can make your figure a little bit more bold, a little bit more petite, whichever you like. And now we have the outline to the body. And the next thing we're going to do, which is one of our last steps, is we're going to rinse off our paintbrush in water now. Now we're rinsing it in water, tapping it on the side of our cups. Got a little bit of extra paint in mine, so I got to rinse it off a little bit longer. Tapping it on the side of our cups, dabbing both sides off on our paper towel. We're switching to yellow paint. Now, that white paint should be nice and dry now. Now we can go over it with our yellow. So we are multitasking our paintings to make sure that they are the best that they can be. I'll keep a little bit of space in between that black and that yellow for now, because that black is still fresh. And it's going to definitely touch that yellow. And that may work for us, and I'll explain how in just a second. But before I do, I'm going to keep a little bit of space down there for now. I'm going to make sure I smooth that paint into the entire shape and space of that crown. Smooth my brush strokes out. Now you can either keep your crown nice and solid yellow from here, or you can add some detail. What I mean by detail is essentially highlights and shadows. Again, this step is optional. From this step, you can either add these details I'm about to add, or you can just simply leave it as is, or you can add a final black outline to your crown. And then into your painting, like such. Or we can take it a little bit deeper. Now, this looks awesome the way it is, for sure. However, we can definitely take this a little bit more detailed, only if we want to. This part is optional. Again, this is optional. But for those painters out there who would like a very detailed piece, what you can do is add just a teeny bit of black speckles to that yellow paint here and here. Wipe the excess off on your paintbrush. You can grab a little bit more yellow and add that back in there, and that yellow is going to darken up to show some shadows. So we can add some shadows in here. When it dries up, we can add some crown jewels, which I won't do today. I'll keep it nice and simple, but I'll add the shadows here and here. I'm going to keep that nice bold white outline there. I kind of like that. May even add just a little bit more white into it. I'm going to add a little bit of white highlights on the inside of the crown to make some shine effects. We're just doing different things to give our crown some details and make it as nice as we can possibly get it. So the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some vibrancy to this white space, because I kind of like this. There we go. And then from there, last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just initial my name or sign it. And I am the left-handed bandit. Thank you very much for painting with me. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you already haven't. You can check me out on social media under Left-Handed Bandit, spelled LFTHANDED Bandit. Again, that's left with no E in it, Left-Handed Bandit. Website, Left-Handed Bandit. Social media, Left-Handed Bandit. Thank you for painting with me again. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. But other than that, we're done with our paintings. Feel free to add as much detail as you'd like from here. And that's it. That's all I got for you. Thank you.